Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate your patience and being here on this fine Sunday afternoon. Going to open up with an informative speech, talk about 3 methods of payments and then how to protect your credit cards and debit cards. Okay? According to creditcard.com, Ms. Hamilton in 2015, 45% of people prefer debit cards to 35% of credit cards, and 9% prefer cash. Of the 1,000 people surveyed during that statistic that they took. Also, I would like to talk about there's various different ways that the debit card and the credit card, you need to understand the inheritable risk that you have with debit cards versus the credit card. With debit cards, the inherited risk is that you could be charged up to $500 or more if you don't notify the bank within 48 hours of the fraud, if your identity is taken. And on credit cards, you have litigation that protects you, and all you do is get charged a $50 fee. Now I'd like to go over and talk about the 4 major threats to your debit cards and your credit cards. And those are your EMV cards, which is we call the smart card with the chips in them. These are not safe because the black hat community has already broken into it, and they can retrieve your information from the reader and from the company's database that it goes to. Also, we'd like to talk about the RFD skimmers, where they have at gas stations or at ATMs and other little locations where you put a credit card in. It's a little device that actually fits inside the scanner, and when you slide your card in, it'll actually retrieve the data and send the information over to a suspecting car over here that actually has an RFID reader code so they can read your data and get your PIN information. The other thing that's a threat is your computers, to include Xbox, Redbox, your tablets, your PCs, and your smartphones. Always make sure that malware, which is malicious software, is never loaded up, and make sure they're always up to date and current. And that way it eliminates some of that information. And the last thing is your server. Don't give your server your debit card. Prefer to give them a credit card, okay? Because they can take your information from the card and then clone the card and then go back and use that card and use it later. Now we informed you of the vulnerabilities. Let's go into to protect your card. These RFID sleeves will help you with the RFID scanners that I talked about, which they got to get close to you in one thing to do it, okay? But they can, within distance, they can pull all your data if you did not have them in this type of thing. Also, another way is to put this card and your debit card together in your wallet, and those two together will confuse the RFID scanners, so they won't be able to populate it correctly and get your information off of there. And the last thing is make sure you update your antivirus, like I was talking about with the malware and stuff like that. Okay, and basically on your computer, if you don't know who it's from, then don't open it, just delete it. Because if you open it, that's where your virus comes in, and that's where they'll steal your information and get your information to your computer, and then they'll create a man in the middle, which means that they'll come in and take your information without you knowing it, and you think you're at a true website. So that's a few ways to protect your card, both online and while you're out about. And then the future technologies are coming about is wearables, where you actually will have your suit or a smartwatch, or you'll have your smartphones and stuff like that. And then that's your wearables, because they consider your smartphone to be a wearable. As far as your biometrics, your contact lenses, your eye scan, and your fingerprint scan with a PIN is the biometrics they're talking about in the future. And then again, back to the smartphone with the PayPal and stuff like that, that's where they're going to actually use your information, which is actually an encryption device already, that you're going to go up to the counter and click your phone, and it'll talk to the device, and then it'll do your transaction, which is the most secure way. And that's the way the company should have did, instead of just giving you this device right here. They should have did that at first. And that way we have more security and would be less than $65 billion in fraud attempts every 6 seconds that occurs. The last thing I want to do is make sure that we get the site into the creditcard.com folks for the Future of Technology by Bob Sullivan, who gave us that tidbit of information. And lastly, in closing, I'd like that we went over the cards and the vulnerabilities. and what they have, their risk associated with them. Talk about the actual ways to protect your cards. And finally, as Bob Levin liked to say in his book Swipe, remember your 3 M's, and that is to monitor your risk, monitor your identity, and make sure you monitor your damage or manage your damage fast and secure. With that, I thank you for your time and have a great afternoon.